While fishing near the coast one day, something weird got stuck on my hook. When I pulled it out, it wasn't a fish, it looked like a tiny glowing eel with scales. Instead of throwing it back like a normal person, I did the obvious thing. I took it home in a bowl. Turns out that was a terrible idea. The little guy started growing insanely fast, glowing under moonlight, eating everything I fed it, and eventually becoming way too big for my house. So I had no choice but to release it into the ocean, which somehow led to warships, fighter jets, and a very angry sea monster. And just when things couldn't get worse, something even bigger is waiting in the deep sea. I was fishing alone near the rocky shore one quiet morning when my line suddenly jerked hard. It didn't feel like a normal fish. The pull was heavy and steady, almost controlled. Curious, I reeled it in quickly. When it broke the surface, I saw a small eel-like creature twisting on the hook. But it wasn't like any eel I had ever seen. Its body was covered in tiny dog scales that shimmered blue in the sunlight, almost metallic. Its eyes were clear and strangely focused, as if it was studying me instead of panicking. I filled a small bowl with seawater and placed it inside, still unsure why I didn't just throw it back. It circled the bowl slowly, then lifted its head slightly above the water, watching me. The more I looked at it, the more certain I felt that this was something rare, something different. I decided to take it home. That night, as it rested in a larger glass bowl in my kitchen, I noticed faint blue pulses moving beneath its scales, softly lighting the water around it. It had only been a few hours since I caught it, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just brought home something far more mysterious than a strange little eel. The next morning, I gently lifted the baby Leviathan out of the bowl to see if it could survive on land for a short time. To my surprise, it could. It slid across the floor like a small snake, curiously roaming around the house and exploring every corner. After a while, I realized it was probably hungry, but I had no idea what a creature like this would eat. I started experimenting. First, I gave it a boiled egg, which it swallowed almost immediately. Then I tried a small piece of meat, and it ate that too. Out of curiosity, I even offered some fruits and vegetables, and surprisingly, it seemed to like those as well. Still, I didn't feel right keeping the baby Leviathan in a simple bowl. It deserved more space. So later that day, I set up a proper fish tank with clean water and some rocks inside. The moment I placed it in the tank, it began swimming around happily, circling the glass and glowing faintly under the water. Over the next few days, I started noticing something strange. The baby Leviathan was growing much faster than I expected. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but each morning it looked a little longer and thicker than the day before. Within a week, it had already doubled in size, and the fish tank that once looked spacious now seemed too small for it. It kept swimming in tight circles, occasionally bumping the glass with its head as if it wanted more room. That's when I realized I had a new problem. If it kept growing like this, the tank wouldn't hold it much longer. I didn't want the little Leviathan to feel trapped, so I decided to build something bigger for it. I spent the next day setting up a large custom aquarium in my garage, using thick glass panels, pumps, and seawater. When I finally placed the baby Leviathan inside, it immediately began exploring its new space, swimming faster and more freely than before. A few days after moving the baby Leviathan into the larger aquarium, I began noticing something unusual. One evening while feeding it, the water inside the tank started to ripple, even though the Leviathan wasn't moving much. At first I thought the pump was malfunctioning, but then the creature's scales began glowing brighter than usual, lighting the entire tank with a soft blue color. The Leviathan slowly lifted its head and released a deep humming sound that vibrated through the water. The ripples spread in perfect circles across the surface, and even the lights in my garage flickered for a moment. Strangely, the creature didn't look aggressive or scared. It almost seemed excited, swimming around the tank faster than usual. I stood there watching in disbelief. Later that night, I started thinking it might be better to move the Leviathan out of the garage and into the garden where it would have more space and fresh air. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, but it turned out to be a huge mistake. The moment the Leviathan came under the moonlight, its scales suddenly began glowing a bright blue, far stronger than I had ever seen before. The light spread across its entire body. Within minutes, the Leviathan started growing again. I could actually see its body getting longer and thicker right in front of me. The large aquarium couldn't handle the sudden movement and pressure. Cracks spread across the glass until it finally shattered, sending water everywhere. The Leviathan slid onto the ground, its glowing body coiling across the wet grass. I stood there confused and panicking, trying to figure out where I could possibly keep it now. Then the Leviathan lifted its head and looked toward the backyard pool. Almost instantly, it slithered across the grass and jumped straight into the water with a huge splash. The moment it entered the pool, it began swimming around excitedly, clearly enjoying the space. Watching it glide through the water, glowing under the moonlight, I realized that maybe the pool was the only place big enough for it now. But something told me this wouldn't be the last time I have to find it a bigger home. By the next morning, the Leviathan had already outgrown the pool. Its long body filled almost the entire space. That's when I realized the truth. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't raise a creature like this at home. It was a Leviathan. Its true home was the ocean. So I made the hardest decision. I carefully moved the Leviathan into the back of my pickup truck in a large water container and started driving toward the coast. I drove far from the city until I finally reached a quiet, isolated part of the shoreline where no one was around. Slowly, I released the Leviathan into the water. For a moment, it didn't swim away. It stayed near the shore, looking back at me. I couldn't help but remember the day I first caught it on my fishing line, how small it was, and everything that had happened since then. Just like the way I found it, now we were separating the same way, at the edge of the sea. The Leviathan gave one last look, then slowly turned and disappeared beneath the water. The Leviathan began exploring its true world. As days passed, it kept growing bigger and stronger, roaming deep underwater across large distances. Sometimes fishermen or ships would catch a glimpse of a massive shadow moving beneath the waves. Soon rumors started spreading around the city about a giant sea creature. Blurry photos and videos began appearing online, and before long they went viral. And many began searching the sea, trying to find proof of the legendary Leviathan. One day, while trying to escape the crowd of ships, the Leviathan surged upward from the depths and accidentally capsized a few nearby boats. It wasn't trying to harm anyone, it was simply trying to clear space, but the incidents caused panic. The government quickly labeled the Leviathan as a serious threat. News reports spread across the country, and authorities ordered military forces to deal with the creature before more damage could happen. Fear spread through nearby coastal cities, and many people began leaving their homes, creating chaos as evacuation orders were discussed. Soon, warships appeared on the horizon, and fighter jets roared across the sky. They began attacking the Leviathan with missiles and heavy weapons. Explosions echoed across the ocean, but the creature's thick, armored scales protected it from most of the damage. The Leviathan tried to dive deeper and flee into the open sea, but the attacks continued relentlessly. Finally, cornered and exhausted, the Leviathan reacted. With a massive surge from the water, it struck the warships with powerful waves and crushing force. Some ships were thrown aside while others were damaged by the sheer impact. When the jets swooped lower for another attack, the Leviathan unleashed a tremendous shockwave from the ocean's surface, sending several aircraft spiraling away in the sky. The ocean fell quiet again, but now the world knew that the creature in the depths was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. After the battle, the Leviathan escaped by diving deep into the ocean where the water was dark and silent. While exploring the deep sea, it noticed what looked like giant rocks on the ocean floor. But as it moved closer, it realized they were actually enormous tentacles. Suddenly, a massive eye slowly opened in the darkness. The Leviathan had found something terrifying in the deep sea, the Kraken.